All right. Hopefully you can hear and see me. I swear I hit all the right buttons. It didn't work. Okay, can you see me now? I hope so. Ah, what a day, what a day. It is so good to see Mary and Carol and Charlene. Oh, it's so good to see all of you. Our Marys. It is so good. I've got some great pictures that Charlene sent me from a... Good. Okay, so now I'm on. Yay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to tell you, too, I'm just feeling a little under the weather today, so I apologize if I'm not up to snuff. Ever since I got back, I feel like I've been trying to get a cold, and I hate that. So, okay, hello. First thing I'd like to do is show you what I've been working on hard this week, trying to get it done. And it's my Sparrow quilt, the smaller size one. And Mary, just to tell you, hi Cheryl. And Mary, just to tell you, I am going to show you how to make a Dorset button today. I'll show you the ones I made in class. I haven't finished them because I've just not been my normal self and my hands were hurting so bad. So I will, but we are going to make a Dorset button. If you want to make a Dorset button the same time I'm doing it, get a large, like a crewel work needles, maybe something that's not sharp, but you can get a pearl cotton. Something as thick as 6 strands of floss or a piece of pearl cotton, a piece of maybe size 12 thread, something a little bulky. I'll show you the one I'm using. So here is a needle, big enough. It doesn't need to be sharp. So if you've got, and then here is the double strand. I'll show you a single strand. That just helps a little. But we will be doing that in just a few minutes. I'll show you what I made in class, but I'd really like to rest up my hands for a day or so and finish them before I talk more about those. So that we'll talk a little bit today and talk more next week. All right, so I have been working on my Sparrow quilt like a crazy girl. And then today I managed to get 4 more rows on my narrow SeaScape quilt. I didn't do any hand embroidery. I was telling Mark, I'm so frustrated because I haven't done enough. And he said, Deb, this is your first week back from retreat. And I had a 1-day class. That class lasted from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's a long class, and I was tired. But the good news is, tonight I told Mark I need chicken soup. We're going to have some of his frozen tortilla soup for dinner, and I think that might help me feel a little bit better. Yeah, usually we're lucky. We have some pretty good... Hi, Michelle the Quilter! I don't get out much, so I don't get exposed to many bugs that are out there, and I have a feeling I've come home with just a little bit of a cold or something, but it's like it just makes me feel tired and sleepy and like my head's way too heavy. So, but I'm here. I didn't want to make y'all wait. And I thought today I'm going to do a lot of demonstrations, if that's okay with you. I've gotten this much done of my block number 14. So I'm almost done with block 14. And I'm going to show you a new little thing I got. If you like, this is English paper piecing, and I love it. The older I get, the less I want to sit for long hours at a sewing machine. So I'll go to the sewing machine, sew for a couple hours, then maybe go put my feet up and do some handwork. And I have a new, maybe the pollen. It could be it's starting. Good thought. Hi, Polly. So But we'll see. And I think I've got some pictures from, oh yes, I've got photos from Polly's diorama. Wait till you see her trees. Unbelievable. But anyway, I'm going to show you how I do English paper piecing on this. But isn't that a pretty little pattern? I love it. And this is the one where I ran out of my orange and I had to substitute an orange. And you really can't tell. And maybe only if you look close up. But let me get my other camera and show you I'm getting it ready, and I'm going to show you the Sparrow quilt, okay? So here we go. Let's see this baby. All right. So, whoops. I'm not used to using this other one, but here is my Sparrow quilt, and just so you know, I put a little mark, me and Mark as birds facing each other to be like kissing birds. So I thought that was cute. But this is the Sparrow quilt that I've been working on. I'm going to show you how to make a block of that. Then that one is my stencil quilt, where I took acrylic paint and I took and put baking soda in it and textile medium in it and painted over the stencil. So I was real excited. But anyway, I think I only have one more row of birdies. I haven't decided if I may do a second birdie, but I've been real tickled with my progress. Alrighty, so now I will let me come back to the main screen and put this back where I need it. Oh, I am the world's best at pinching fingers. Now let's see what here is. Now I don't know why that camera I don't know why this camera is blinking, but if it keeps it up, I'll show Mark when we're done. But here are the new rows I did today. Pardon me. But here are the new rows I did today. I'm going to come from the sun. What I have to do next is come from the sunset into the regular water. Since I've done more with the sunset, I'm going to shorten the dock up so I have enough water, blue water in front of the dock. So I know that even though you might use one of my patterns, totally make it your thing. So, pardon me. So there's that. Now, while we're right here, why don't I go ahead and show you how easy it is to make. Now that's upside down, so let me try to turn it. Okay, that's not too bad. Alright, so now I will show you how I make. My chair feels stuck. One of my wheels must not be turning good. I must have picked up a thread. Alright, here is the Sparrow quilt. And what I did is if you let me go back and show you. Alright, let me see. Look over my shoulder at the Sparrow quilt. I shrunk the block. I love this quilt so much, but for the space that I want to hang it in, I needed it to be a wee bit smaller, okay? Thank you. There's our Pat, and Miss Jo is here. Oh, I don't see Marcia. I'm worried about Marcia. I better check with her. I'll check with her right after the show today. So, all right. So I just wanted to show you I shrunk the block. So I go by this to piece it together, but I don't know why this camera is blinking all of a sudden. Oh, maybe it's pulling there just a little. Let me see. Well, okay, I don't know. All right, we'll just keep going. I'm sorry it's doing a little bit of a blip for you. Okay, so what I do, you have to do this birdie block. One facing left, and then others, half of them facing right. And it may not quite be half. You would have to count. But then what I did is I drew lines with a marker to show me, to remind me how to piece the birds that go the other way. This was the trickiest part of the whole making of this quilt, is that some of them I would get confused and I would start, because it's a mirror image. So that's how I did that to remind me. But this next, the last row that I hope I'm making, are going to be facing to the left like this. So I pre-made whatever components I could. Like right here with the beak, I pre-made the leaf, the half square triangle leaves section, and this section with the half square triangles and the tail. So I pre-made here. Here is this one with the tail and the half square triangles. Here is a half square triangle that's going to go right there. And then the beak will go out front. So what I need to work on right now is I have this chest piece right here. And it takes this size square. I'm going to sew on the diagonal, flip the square over. Nice, nice and simple. So here is the chest. It's the pale blue. And then I'm going to place this one here. And I ironed it because I hate drawing that diagonal line on fabric. So I ironed it right down the middle. To me, it was quicker and easier. All right. And let me stitch right down that diagonal. Now, while I'm doing that one, I like to do things in partnership, chain piecing, because that, when you chain piece, you save thread and you mostly save time. So here is a bigger square that I put on the diagonal right here. And now I'm going to sew this one. You know, each of my machines has something special about it. This one is so good about accepting the point of fabric, where my machine upstairs that I consider my ultimate machine does not like fabric to be pushed in on a point. So let me do something really quickly. I'm going to give this an iron, right like this. I'm going to give this one an iron, knowing which way to fold the excess. Okay. Okay, now, what I do is I turn it over and make sure that it meets pretty good in the back here. So now I'll bring my scissors in. These aren't very sharp, sadly. I'll bring these scissors, cut off the back triangles. See, so now one piece of fabric, one piece of fabric. When they're this big, I save them because I can use them for other projects. I don't like wasting them. So now, this is what I've got. I've got the first triangle on the body. I've got this, which is the chest part with this triangle. I check here that, and like this, it's only barely off. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to cut it so I don't let it be too big. It's not worth opening the seam for a 1/16 of an inch. And I'm just going to just trim that even. Get that thread off. And then come in here and cut off these back 2 pieces. One of the pieces is the rectangle, one of the pieces was from the square. Alright, so now let me get my threads out of here. Okay, so I've got this and I've got this and this. Okay, this is the chest, this is the body. But I need one more square up here to do, where did I put? Okay, here, one of the little squares. Alright, so now I'm taking this little square, which is a square Q, and I'm going to sew that on the diagonal. And you notice I'm putting it right sides down. And when I finish showing this, I want to show you something I'm doing. Okay, whoops, let me get it going straight. Alright, now, okay, I was going to show you, and I need to try to sew this part again. It's a little crooked. But there's the diagonal line. Go 1 stitch threads width that way past the diagonal line, so you'll have enough room to... Did you hear my little cameras blinking? I don't know what I did. Mark is here, so don't worry. I tried all of that too. So then, instead of, let me see, I'm just going to do this with my fingernails. Check on the back. It looks good. So cut off these extra pieces on the back. All right. So now, let me get this laying down. Instead of grabbing my iron, I'm just using my fingernail. So now I have, and I'll show you so you can see, I have the body with the 2 triangles, and I have the chest with the triangle. So now I just flip these right sides together and come and sew this together. All right. And it's important to use a good 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, because if you don't use a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, then the pieces won't meet well at the end. So now I have the whole bottom half of the birdie sewn together.
Half a second, pause.
What now?
Pause for half a second.
Okay. Can I just put you on pause for just a moment? Mark's going to see if he can do something with the... Let's see if we can... All right. And otherwise we'll just not worry about it.
All right, you're back on.
All right, here we go. So now we're going to do the top half of the bird's body. Whoops. I need this.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Apologies, guys.
Can y'all hear us? Are you on the main camera? We were having a little freezing of this. I might just stop using this for right now. That's okay. No, they can't hear me now, I guess. I started to say, let's do this after the show, but okay.
Well, that's up to you.
Yeah, I don't want to. The small camera is frozen, so I'm going to go back to what I know best, and we will work on that little glitch at another point. Hello, Teresa. How are you? And Laura R. Hi, sweetie. It is so good to see y'all. Okay, so now we're going to work on the top half of the body so we can get this done. And the little camera is frozen right now, so we'll check into that in a moment. All right, now I'm not going to move this top camera too much, so you might not see me exactly sew, but you know I'm sewing. No worries, okay? So I'm sewing right now the little eyeball. Sewing the little eyeball here. And then putting this little top piece on here. And Polly asked, could I give her the measurements, the smaller measurements? And yes, I will put the smaller measurements on our website. And because the other one really did make a very big quilt, big and heavy quilt. We forget just how heavy a quilt can be by the time you get the batting in it and get it quilted and the backing. It's a lot of fabric. All right, so here is the eye, and believe it or not, you're tempted to want to put the eye this way, but the long part is at the top. So there's that. Now we're going to I need to iron this piece real quick. Had a big crease across it. And so now, let me show you based on this. Let me get these pieces out of the way so we don't confuse it. To make this top piece, it starts from over here with the first two, I call them leaves, and stops right before the beak. So I've got this right here, and this piece is going to be right here. So it needs a small piece. Two, needs a piece Q, put in the corner, and just look at the picture, notice which direction the diagonal is going, and then make sure you've got it right here. Now I'm going to quickly stitch just one thread to the right of the diagonal line crease. Alright, so here is this one, and then I just take and press this over, go to the back. It looks good, so I trim off the very corner of the rectangle and the corner of the square that I put on top. So now I just have one layer and one layer. Now, I can go ahead, since I've got the forehead of the bird, I can go ahead and put the eye on. So I'll lay those right sides together. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch that. The more you can get done in little units, the less chance you have of making a mistake. And so it's like, claim it, get it seated where it's supposed to go. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you from doing so many blocks this week is there's a lot of seams here. So what I do is I press the seam allowance towards the side with less finicky, less in the flatter side, because to fold it back on itself would really be a struggle. So I'm going to press it this way. I'm going to do that really quickly. But when you're doing piecing, try not to stress your fabric out. I mean, yes, you can get a hammer and hammer it flat, but why not just press it towards the side with less going on? Okay, so now I've got this piece done. Now I need to work on this one. And I need another big square. And I'm going to make a slope on his back. Whoever wrote this pattern did such a great job. I'm going to make the slope on his back by putting the right sides together with this, sewing down that diagonal right down to the opposite corner there. Okay, and let me just, while I'm right here, just do a quick press on it. It makes it so much easier. Okay, and then cut off the back two bits here, so you just have half of the square on the front of this rectangle. I need to sharpen these scissors. Alright, so now here is the back of the bird. Okay, so these two can now be sewn together. Here we go. Let me stitch these together real quickly. And it's just a matter of, you know, it's like following a puzzle. And just making all of the components. Now, again, here I have the two seams. So I'm going to press this way. Now, I forgot something. I've got to make sure before I post the new measurements of this Sparrow quilt, I've got to make sure that I have a correction made. This piece D, which is the main part, the biggest part of the birdie's head, I have that piece 1/4 of an inch too long. So let me just quickly seam rip this off. Let me seam rip this off and then cut that 1/4 of an inch, because I had cut these pieces out before I realized that this was just a wee bit too long. This pattern is a pretty simple, straightforward pattern, but there are a few intersections that you've got to get to work. So I cut off 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to place it every time I place it to make sure I've got it right side up. That's the only thing that makes this a little tricky, is it doesn't look like a bird until all the pieces are sewn together. So now, like this, let me stitch it up real quickly. Okay, come on. Okay. All right. Alrighty. Here we go. So now press the seam allowance to the side with less going on. So now when you put these two up, you see that it looks like the bird's back will have a chance to fit. But this, before you can sew the top of the head onto the body, you've got to put this little guy on here. And I'm just making sure, yep, and he's the correct size. And then I'll come right over here and sew this on. Now, when you make your little piles, since you have to have mirror image sections, make sure that you've got your piles in the right place so that you don't pick up the little half square triangle that's going the wrong way. And in here, since I've got 1, 2 seams, and this just has 1, I'm going to iron it so the seam allowance goes that way. Seam allowances, normally when I work with seam allowances, I iron them to the darker fabric, but not always. And don't worry that this is hanging down. This piece, it got a little tricky sometimes with a few of these little measurements. But don't worry, I'll show you. Alright, so now this is ready to sew the top to the bottom. So what you have to do, there's only a couple pins needed here. And you have this little seam allowance on this side of the eye. That needs to match up with that seam allowance there. So I'll put these two together, make sure they're in the right place, then put a pin right at that intersection. Then I like to take and lay this here. I'm going to trim a little bit of this off. It had 4 pieces of fabric coming together right there. Alright, what I like to do with this one is I like to fold it back to see if at the 1/4 inch these lines will meet. Because see how the head goes in line with the body and goes in line with the tail. So I try to be careful with that. Alright, now I'm going to try to alright. I'm going to stitch this. Now, I will tell you, with me shrinking the pattern sizes, some of these pieces might be a 1/16 of an inch off, and just do your best and not to worry, because it's really, really hard to shrink a pattern down when you then have to deal with fractions and 1/8 and 1/16 and that didn't quite meet good enough. So I think if I stitch it one more time again, I'm going to loosen up just about an inch, inch and a half here. Okay, let me see. And what I want is I want the top part to be sewn down a little more. And don't get upset with some of this if it doesn't want to match up perfectly. I only try. I have this standing rule that I will try 3 times to get whatever seam lined up. And if that doesn't work, then I live with it as it is. I'm pushing this top fabric up just a little, because then I think it'll meet better. So sometimes you have to kind of move things around just a touch. And all of this happens because as you're sewing, maybe one thing is not exactly a 1/4 of an inch, stuff happens. There's so many, every single step you do with making a quilt, you have a chance of getting it wrong. Now here, it's really, really close. Really, really close. There are times if you fold the seam allowance one way or the other, you will get it to match better. So I'm going to call this one good enough. Let me put a quick iron on it. And please just, and if in this one, it's so close that if I iron down, it looks the closest. So that is good enough for me. Now I'm going to take and put his little beak on. So I'm just going to flip this over and line it up. And stitch this together real fast. Now, I did notice that my beaks do not match up like the pattern picture does. But that's okay. I didn't want to, I would have had to recut some pieces. but I will make sure, see how it starts down a little bit? Where in the original pattern, it's even right there. Well, I didn't want to recut all my pieces, but all I have to do to fix this is make this one, I'll change this to be 1/4 of an inch longer and this 1/4 of an inch shorter. So I'll do that before I put it on the site. I've got to remember all these little sniggles because I want it as close to perfect for you as I can get it. All right, so now we've got that. We've got his little beak on. Now we have to add his tail. So since I've already put this together as a component, then we know we're in pretty good shape. I'm gonna just put another little seam right across here. Whoops. Hold on. Okay. I noticed this seam was sewn together a little bit fast, and I was worried it didn't have a consistent 1/4 of an inch. So, okay. All right. So here we are, and here are the pieces. Now, we're going to take, and you're going to match this with this, that seam across there, so that those cute little half square triangles match good. Okay, and then put this here. All right, let's see how this is going to work. Okay. But I tell you what, I have been doing so much sewing at the machine. I have really listened to a lot of audiobooks, which I really enjoy. And some better than others. I'm not as thrilled with bodice rippers as I used to be. They now seem just a wee bit silly, but anyway. But you know what? Each day I'm interested in something slightly different, so there's time and place for all. Okay, this tail is not good enough. And what I'm seeing, this piece right here, this part is too long. Remember when I said I didn't think that I had sewn a uniform 1/4 of an inch? So I'm going to take this back apart, and I'm going to redo that 1/4 of an inch seam because I want that tail to line up better. And I have been, honestly, I have been sewing so fast that not everything, I'm trying so hard just to get it done to be able to show y'all. Plus, I've got other things to sew, and I hadn't really planned to remake this immediately, but since I'm giving the other one to my daughter, if I don't hurry up and do this, I might not ever do it. You know, it's one of those things. Do it while you're still in that zone. All right, so let's see. All right, I think that's going to be better. So now I will get ready and stitch this. Okay, lining it up. So while I'm sewing this, I'll tell you something just a wee bit sad. It has a good ending, but my daughter called me, my daughter Becky, who lives here, who has the white standard poodle Polly, who you have, if you've been here with me a while, you've seen her on screen. And so Andy, her young man, let Polly out and happened to notice that a neighbor's pit bull two pit bulls came around the fence and attacked our Polly. Authors do I like? Well, my favorite, oh, look at this, guys. I did it. It is now perfect. So sometimes you just kind of have to, you know, let me get this iron. Boy, am I tickled with how this one worked out. Okay. Look at this. Isn't that wonderful? So here is the bird. Look at that tail. That's right. Good. I love this. So now, authors I like. My very, very best is Patricia Cornwell. I love her books. Sandra Brown I was listening to, but they're a little, I don't know. The romances are, the guys are all names, unusual names like San Antonio, or I don't know. They're just, that's a little bit much. I also like, what is her name now? I'm trying to think. Oh gosh, J.A. Jantz. I love hers. But I'm listening to a Krentz. I forgot her first name, Krentz, right now, and it's kind of tough. It's a scary one. But I love mystery quilts. Let me put this so you can see it. So now, here is the last blue bird I'll probably make for this quilt. And then I'll put the blue sashing on each side with the dark red cornerstones. But this will be the last blue birdie probably that will be made. Now you'll notice here that this doesn't meet, but that's okay. It's not supposed to meet. So this is all good. All right? So that, and so it takes about that long to make each bird. And with the quilt that I'm making 28 birdies. So you're not going to get it done in a day, I hate to tell you, but keep at it, you will get it done. I've got about a yard and a quarter left of fabric for the background. And I want to make a 6-inch border, I believe, that I'm going to then applique. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. Oh gosh. Yes, they had Polly, they had Polly on the ground and just biting her. And luckily Andy has been staying out with the dogs when they go out. He ran faster than he said he's ever run before, and he started kicking the pit bulls to get them off of her because he was yelling and they weren't even paying attention. So he finally kicked them and then picked her up and ran back in the house with her. She has a 3-inch gash on her back. She has numerous punctures and bruises all over. Polly will go to a fence and talk trash with a dog, but she's not a fighter. It's just not in her. So they took her, he called Becky. Becky came rushing home from school. They took her to the vet, and she was doing so good. She has a high, hold on just a second. Oh, no. I accidentally don't know. Okay. And I can't get this loose. There we go. So they took her to the vet, and he was able to stitch the 3-inch long gash with just local. And he cleaned all the wounds and gave her medication. So, when she called me, I burst into tears. She burst back into tears. It was so traumatic. But Polly has been a champ. She handles pain really well. So she's kind of acting like, it's okay. So, but I just want to show you. Okay, let's see. I don't have a picture of Miss Polly, but I wanted to show you they've been working on putting a fence up now. They want the whole yard fenced in so that there's no way that, here's Andy with the gate he made. The backyard was mostly fenced, but it had some areas that were, and then they found out that these same pit bulls, a neighbor said, oh, those pit bulls tried to attack mine through the fence. They were trying to bite the dog's nose and rip it off through the fence. So Becky went and got chicken wire, chicken mesh, and put inside the wire fencing that they put up. Because, you know, it's like, almost like she's gonna have guards and sirens or something, and it's so frustrating. These dogs have attacked before, which that bothers me. They shouldn't live in a neighborhood if they're going to attack, or you should at least have them fenced in their own yard, because they came onto Becky's property. So there's been a report filed, and the neighbor did say they will pay the vet bills. Let's hope they do, because that's not right. That is just not right. So, I know, it just, I do not trust pit bulls, and I never have. And nothing is making me change my mind. Nothing I've seen. So anyway, okay. So that was something I meant to tell you. Mark had a fence post pounder shipped to them. It arrived at their door the next day. Anything that we could try to help. Yeah, razor wire over the top. Sentry guards. Oh, I know. Those, once dogs, I mean, that's so silly that the dogs would get into, and they just had her pinned down, were ripping her. And she's a tall dog. I mean, she's not, if it had been a small dog, oh my gosh, I don't know if he could have gotten them off. And to me, there's no place in a neighborhood for that. They did report it. A report has been made, and they are at fault, although the city said even though your dogs were attacked in your yard, you have to have it completely fenced in. So they right away went right out. Plus, they don't want to take another chance. I mean, Polly is such a wonderful, sweet girl who, I might add, loves to watch Nana on this show. Polly and I have always been real close. So, but anyway, Polly's going to be fine. I just want to put my eyes on her and give her a hug and all of that. But, oh my gosh. Yes, and they do. You're right. The pit bulls seem to just be allowed by their owners to run free or loose. Now, I have a neighbor beside me who has a pit bull, but he's very careful with his. Thank goodness. But when we see him out walking that dog, it's everything he can do to constrain that dog on the leash. So we give him a big berth. We make sure we're in the house because he pulls and pulls at that dog, and it's just awful. All right, now I think what I'm going to do is I will show you the, no hand embroidery today. I'll show you the button. Oh, I know. Let me write this down. That I want to show you English paper piecing, but first I'd like to show you Dorset's button. So, but everyone loves Polly because she's such a sweet dog. And you know, the other thing that's a little upsetting too is that Polly's getting older, and I worry about older dogs getting hurt. So, hold on just 1 second. I want to make sure that there wasn't something I needed to know. Okay, and just to show you, Andy's dog, my daughter Becky's young man, his dog got a little blue tip put on its tail, had a little hair dye tip, and I think that is so cute. I know who did it. Charlie did it. I know it. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Dorset buttons. I think the early ones were started in the 1600s, 1700s. They gained a huge popularity in the 1800s before the Industrial Revolution took place. Once the Industrial Revolution took place, then they kind of died off. But for a period of time, and they're called Dorset buttons because they were made in Dorset, England. And at a period of time, families were able to live well hand-making Dorset buttons. Now, what a Dorset button was, what it started out to be pure in the beginning, was they took sheep horns and sliced them into rings, so they had a ring of sheep horn, and then they would take the sheep's wool and make it into a fine yarn, and then they would weave this around the sheep's ring. Because at that time period, if you think about it, they had maybe horn or tortoise shell buttons, which were expensive, or metal buttons, which were very expensive. Remember back in the colonial times that metal was so expensive that when your house burned down, you waited until it was barely cool enough. You went out there and you gathered up all your nails to build your next house. So, metal buttons were very expensive. And in fact, a lot of people would wear buttons, wear their wealth. They could cut off a button, sell it, and have money. So that's the way buttons were kind of used as a means of commerce. All right, I'm going to bring the camera down. Let me see if I can try this one again. Maybe by now it's not still stuck, but I'm not promising. But I want to show you the collection of Dorset buttons that I've made. I've been making these for about 2 years, but I wanted to take a class to learn some new techniques, and I did. Okay, let me go to detail, close up. Hold on, trying to find my, come on, where is my cursor? There's my cursor. My cursor has so much fun. Okay. Nope. Unfortunately, it's still stuck. So I can't show you that way. All right. So I will move that out of the way. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Let me bring it down here and show you my Dorset buttons. And I have some big ones. And these, you might say, well, Deb, what would you do with those? Well, these, I could put a pin on the back and make them into, you could have a large button if you knitted a sweater, or you could make a brooch out of them. And these, it's just like, I tried everything. I just wanted to see what I could do to make them fancier. Let me bring some more light in here. All right, let me show you those again. But Dorset buttons were a way to make inexpensive, affordable buttons. But to be a good Dorset button maker, you had to make about 72 a day. And for that, you would get 3 shillings. So, I've never made any Dorset button quickly enough to have made 72 in a day. But now, back when, I don't think they put beads and everything, you know, it's just weird. I'm not going to use these for the most part as real buttons. So I just try to decorate, make them look fancy by adding different things, variegated thread. Here's one made into a pumpkin. So here are my Dorset buttons. Then there's this one that I made into a tree. Fall colors, fall little touches of color on the ground, fall trees. But you can do all different things. So, for any of you, there are some really good YouTube people out there and a lot of good information. I got this ring. You can use curtain rings, but it should be a solid ring if you can. I found these from someone on Etsy. If you know of anyone who has a 3D printer, these are pretty good if you can get a source of them, because this is my favorite size. And you measure the size by the exterior dimension, and this is about 1 inch and not quite 1.5 inches. And I take and tie the string on, tie a knot, and I'm going to tie it again, because you can hold the string. You can, without tying a knot, kind of hold it and do this cast on, but that gets harder and harder with my arthritis. So, okay, so now you've got the knot tied on. I've got my finger right there on that little bit extra string. And here is the string coming off the back. You're going to do a cast on stitch, which is what knitters do. Okay, crocheters use a chain stitch, but this is a cast on stitch. Okay, so you cast on, and you do it about 96 times. And what this does is this completely covers the ring. And aren't you happy that you don't have to hold on to smelly sheep's horn rings? I can imagine that smell. I know that they probably boiled them and all of that. Now, I can remember having a sweater as a little girl, and I remember it had like a little woolly feel button that just had like a little outside flat piece, and then the wool went across it. And that was a type of Dorset button. And so when I heard about him, I remembered that sweater, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Now, I forgot to tell you that what I do is it takes 4 yards of whatever string, pearl cotton, whatever fingering wool. It takes 4 yards to do a button. And so you have to pull out this long piece. Then I put a big-eyed, non-sharp needle, put it through that, and try to make the ends so that you don't have to pull your arm off. Try to make the ends almost even, but always leave 6 or 12 inches so that you keep a single strand going. Okay? Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing this. This is your final outcome, is you want to have the whole thing covered, and then when you get to the end, you run the thread through the other side and just kind of do a loop to make sure that it's all connected, that it's totally connected. And then you spin the little ridge around, the cast on ridge. You spin that to the middle like this. And maybe what I'll do is show you where to go with this one, but I didn't bring down that thread. Here's one that I did the same size, and this has the pearls on it, which I think are so pretty. Okay. So, I tell you what, I'm going to get ready and show, I was trying to figure out how to make a necklace, like a rainbow necklace, but I haven't quite figured that out. So let me put all of these away for right now. I'm going to go to show and tell, and then hopefully I'll have the 96 loops on there, and then show you how to do the stitching. This is a fun, easy project. Shouldn't cost too much if you get the rings at a good price. But let me bring this back up, because I can still do a normal show and tell, because I don't have to use the close-up camera. Okay, so I will keep, and just to let you know, sometimes you kind of have to let the thread just hang and unwind, because it definitely wants to. And when we finish with show and tell, and I show you a little bit more of this, I'll show you what I learned in class. All right, let's bring up show and tell. Here we go. Show and tell. All right, now let me get the camera over there. And okay. This is Alberta's. Let me bring this up. Whoop, not that big. Hold on just a second. All right. This is Alberta's Bargello. I would call it a brick Bargello. I love it. It's so cute. And then Miss Alberta did placemats, which are precious. So how nice is that? And I love looking at people's studios and stashes in the background. All right, so now I'm going to minimize this. Let's go back to show and tell. Whoops. Hold on. All right. Now, I've got to contact Betty Meisner. I forgot to do that again. And BB, I miss some of the ladies. I know that sometimes y'all go to other sites and enjoy them, and I understand that. Okay. Oh, I'll show you the casting. Don't worry, sweetie. Mary, I'll show it to you. Okay. And here is Miss Bonnie's kitty. She loves her cats. I love that. And then here is a wonderful old style. It looks like it has a good amount of wool in it. It's beautiful. And here is her trellis quilt that she used butterfly buttons on. Okay. And I think, let's see. Now, Charlene. Okay. I'm going to ask, I'll ask this. Can you hear my voice right now, even though I've got it on the photos? I'm hoping you're able to hear my explanation for the photos. Anybody let me know if you can still hear my voice. Hello? Oh, good. Thank you, Miss Jo. Okay, because I wanted to tell y'all that our Charlene Lawson had I think it was her church had a quilt show, and she put 3 quilts in it. But look at this. This is signed by Clara from 1886. And you know, the saddest thing is, for the most part, crazy quilts aren't that valuable. And does anybody know why they're not that valuable? Anybody like to give a guess as to why? Hi, Regal Rose. Oh, good. Thank you, Polly, Cheryl, Regal Rose, Josos. Thank you. But if anybody would hazard a guess why that for the most part, crazy quilts aren't valuable. They mean a lot to the families, but monetarily is what I'm speaking of. Anybody know? The answer to that is because so many were made and preserved. In regular quilts, quilts that were made to keep the family warm, they got used and got used up. Well, made from scraps, but some of really nice scraps. But what they ended up finding out is what they silk degraded, you're right, degraded because of light and some of the mordants, the things that set the dyes, broke down the silks. But mainly is because so many people made them and they preserved them. They did not use them. So there's tons of them out there. It's like, oh, poo. But you know, that's how it goes in the antique world. It's what's most rare is most valuable. But that is a beautiful one, and I love the hand crocheted lace edging. Just beautiful. Look at this. Is this just gorgeous or what? Look at that. All of those. And what a beautiful venue. I've heard of bed turnings where they lay all the quilts on top of the bed. Supply and demand. Exactly right. Exactly right, Miss Jo. So look at this. Isn't that lovely? And there's a hexagon quilt right there. Grandmother's Flower Garden, I believe is what it's called. But I'm so tickled. Now, this is one of Charlene's quilts, Charlene Lawson's quilt. I left that one in there because it's a sweet spring quilt. Here's one of the quilts from the quilt show, and guess, you know what kind of quilt this is? It's a cross-stitch quilt. So whole cloth, cross-stitch pattern. And here is the Grandmother's Flower Garden quilt. Here is, see, even the crazy quilt, even now, is given that place of gentle prominence. Isn't that something? I love it. Here's another view of all of those wonderful quilts. How fun to just be able to walk up and down the aisles and look at these. Wouldn't you love having a chance to do something just very laid back? Beautiful. And there are 3 of these quilts that are Charlene's. There's one of hers right there. That's the one that she used K-facet fabric, and she showed us last week, that one. So I thank you, Charlene, for taking all these wonderful photos and sharing with us, because it makes us feel like we're almost there. And I love that. Then here's another of Miss Charlene's. Does anyone recognize this pattern that we did? But boy, she took it to new heights. This was our garden gate quilt. Do you remember that from a few years ago? Look at her hollyhocks. They're beautiful. Look at the bee. Charlene, you did a wonderful job with this. Look at all of these. There's Charlene's K-facet one back there. I just love all of these. I always love these big Lone Star quilts too. So, so pretty. And this is one of the puffy quilts where you stuff them. They were very popular, I think, back in the 1990s. And this looks like a double wedding ring quilt. But how wonderful that we can see this. It looks like a pineapple quilt back here. That's Miss Charlene's quilt. We do love that. Look at that double wedding ring. Isn't that just beautiful? Looking at the fabrics, I would expect that to have been in the 30s or the 1940s. That's just beautiful. Soft, soft colors. And you notice not one lavender fabric, multiples, because they've all faded in different rates. Oh, there's a Sunbonnet Sue or Southern Ladies. I forget. I guess it's like a Southern Ladies quilt. Love them. Is that the last one? I think I'm going to be sad. I was really enjoying that. Yes, that's the last one. But thank you to Miss Charlene for sharing that. That was so much fun. Okay. Let me see. Miss Julie starting new projects. I love how Miss Julie does series work too. They say it's a really good teaching tool to do quilts in a series. I love her clematis. And then look at this wonderful dogwood. Okay. Thank you, Miss Julie. Very talented. Maybe some point she can teach us how to do those. Okay, let's see who else. I need to find out if Miss Lisa's okay too. I just realized there's some of you I haven't heard. I need to write all this down so I can make sure I do it. I love this block. This is I think her last block of her English paper piecing. And then she has one more quilt. I might have to go out of this to come back in it. And this is the quilt that I gave her. I gave her my pieces of it and the fabrics I was working on. And she turned it into something so beautiful. So remember that if you have a quilt that's just not working for you, pass it on to somebody else who'd like to carry it across the finish line. Because honestly, that's what the whole quilting is all about. And what you might find too frustrating to continue, someone could really love it. So that's my new philosophy. Once I start going through things again, that's what I'm going to want to do. Miss Polly sent us her diorama pictures, and I'm so impressed. Look at this. Well, I wonder what she made the gravel out of. Walnut shells might have worked, but I'm not sure. And understand, this is nice and small. When I get to the picture where you see what size it was, woo! Oh, Mary, I can't wait to see your SeaScape finished. All right, but look at this. Now, she did some really cool little magic tricks, too. She put a mirror in here so that it makes the little pathway look like it's continuing on and on and on. It makes you want to shrink yourself and get right into her wonderful piece. I don't know how she did these trees. I would love for her to show us this. It's amazing. But that's all the bigger her diorama is. But there's so much detail. I'm just very, very impressed. It makes me want to make one. But look at this. Look how the trees in that back corner. Look at this over here. I don't know if it was a piece of printed paper or did she paint it or what, But I am so impressed, Miss Polly. It is gorgeous. And I'm noticing a pattern here. Whatever Miss Polly does, boy, does she do it well. Isn't that lovely? And she said that she would change a couple things next time. But I tell you what, I think it's just wonderful. All right, and I think the best picture of the frame was that, the mirror, is this first one. See how that mirror, I never would have thought of it. The mirror, where it normally ends right here, the mirror carries the look on. Isn't that great? That's printed. What a great idea. I hope this was fun. I love making those miniature houses, scenes, and in fact, I told Mark, I want to do another one. I've got a couple kits I just haven't done. Miss Vicky, I think, is our final one, and I'm so tickled to show off her work. And don't forget, send me your pictures to be included. Let me come back up here. Our time to quilt at twc.com. So send me pictures and I will put your pictures up as well. So we love seeing what you're working on, because when we see them, it gives us inspiration and ideas. Mark and I were watching a lot of YouTube channels with Kaitai, I think they call it, Haitai. It is Japanese or whatever country's food vendors. They have these little carts they bring out and serve like dinners, and it made me all of a sudden want to start cooking again. So we love that. Okay, now I'm going to, here is, I love this, her hand embroidery. It's beautiful. I love that owl. And is that just striking? I love this quilt, very pretty. And this baby quilt is so cute. And look at this. Isn't that wonderful? She's made a three-dimensional piece of art. I just love it. All right, and that was the last one from her. So now I'm going to come back to you guys, and I want to show Miss Mary. I'm sorry I didn't show it well enough for you to get the cast on. So I think I was assuming, which you know, assuming's not a good thing to do. All right. And as you can see, I didn't get a lot done while I was doing show and tell. I just need another hand or three. All right. All right. So you've tied your thread on. Now, I'm left-handed, but since I'm showing it opposite, hopefully you can understand. But I have this thread going off this way. So then, when I put the needle in through the hoop. Yes, they do, Mary. So you put the thread through the hoop and pull, and what it's done is you've gone through that hoop and then it pulls tightly. Let me do that again. Oh, let me bring the light back up here. Okay, so anybody, if you're not sure what the cast on stitch, now, so by putting this thread over the top and behind your hand and going in, putting the thread over and behind your hand, taking the needle, going in through the top of this hoop, and just pull, 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 pull. It makes a little loop that then you tighten up. So I'm going to do it again. You've got your thread hanging down. By putting it this way, what you've just done, you've got this big loop of thread, and I'm putting this needle right through the middle of it. And when you put it right through the middle of it, then when you pull it tight, and it will tighten down. And you see how I really do it tightly and have it going. Okay. So, do you think you understand what you're doing, Miss Mary? Because I want you to be able to get it. When you pull it all the way through. Now, you know what I'm going to do? Well, I hate doing this, but I don't want y'all sitting here falling asleep watching me cast on 96 stitches. And I'm not saying that's exact amount, but it seems to kind of be. I don't even count them. And this is so easy to do. This is very enjoyable to do while you're watching TV at night, you know, because you don't even hardly have to pay attention. But, okay. See, this is the big loop, and because I've run my needle up and through the loop, it holds it on like that, and you just pull it snug. Sure, no worries, hon. And you can always look up someone on YouTube. The reason that I love the YouTube videos is you can back them up and do them as much as you need to so you can see what they're doing. But if you're a knitter, you know you have to cast onto one of the knitting needles a certain number before you start your knitting. And with this, the only difference is you have to pull them tight because the rest of the work you do will benefit from you having nice, tight stitches here. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you was the class I took was by Miss Catherine Redford. Catherine with a C, Redford. And she gave us 2 handouts. This was pretty straightforward. There were a few new things I learned. These buttons down here. But this page, these were called shirtwaist buttons. They were very hard. And let me show you something real quickly. Here was the normal, this was the normal Dorset button that I was working on. Well, you know what? Maybe I can start from this one. Hold on just a second. Okay, now what I did is I put a bead on there, okay? And then I had to, somehow I had to cut the thread and try to tie it back on. So let me try this. But she, Miss Catherine Redford, she's done thousands of these. Well, not me. I haven't even made 100 of them. So it was wonderful to watch someone who really knows what they're doing. Okay, let me do one more loop on here. If you've ever noticed, it can be really hard to get yarn or threads to tie onto one another. It can be really tricky. So I'm going to have to be real gentle with this, or if I pull too tightly, it will come off. Well, the one thing you have to do, now I've covered the loop, what I did is then you take and come around like this, and you come around and you make these spokes. There are 12 spokes here. And you do it by, let me see. No, that one, can't do it that one. You do it, and this is the nice part, is by already having all of this around the button, you just take and you wrap it like this. And this is going to be 6 and 12. Don't worry, it's going around the bead. Don't worry about that. Then you've gone 6 and 12. Now you come back up and you go over here to 1 and 7. Think of the numbers on a clock. Then you go 2 and 8. Then you go 3 and 9. Then you go 4 and 10. And you go 5 and 11. And back to 6 and 12. So that's how I made these loops. Then, while you're still holding them snugly, you come up with the needle. You come up with the needle here. And she showed us how you could look for this little triangle. But you come up like this. You bring the thread over, go down right across from it, and you snug it up. And that will pull all your spokes together. And that's what I've already done. I came up and I did a stitch across this way and a stitch across this way. And it pulled the spokes neatly together. So now I went ahead and put a bead in this. But don't worry about that. You just do that. If you can get the bead to come on your needle, you can put it on during the process. Now, what you do then is you come up, pick a place to come up. I'll come up here, pull it all the way through, not the knot, knot, you stay back there. Okay, so now you've pulled it up between these two spokes. You go back, you came up in this one, so you're going to go down in this one. Okay? This is just a weaving technique. Then you're going to go back one, because you went back down in this one. So now I'm going to come up, wait a minute, here, and go down in this one. Now it's a new one. So what you're kind of doing is you're taking a stitch forward and then going backward a little. So now I'll come up, go back just that one we just came up in, and come down here, then come up, go back one step, and then come down over here. So it's kind of like one in the middle. You're kind of like skipping one but then going back. So it's like you're going across these two, but then you go back to the middle of those two, pull it up, then come down, skip 1, 2, go down. But you just keep taking one step back, so go back one, then come and skip 2, whoops, skip 2, 1, 2, go down. Okay. Come up, go back 1, come up, count 1, 2, go down. And when you do this, it'll make a really, really pretty. Here is one of my finished Dorsets. Well, not, you know what? It's not all the way finished. And this is what the back looks like. But look how pretty the front is. So, when you just keep doing it, you do it till you can't fit any more of those stitches in. Now you have a nice button, and if you leave the thread on the back, then you'll have something to help sew it on in place with. But I'm just going to show you that again. So you find, where did I go down? You look and find the place you went down. I went down in this one, so I'm going to go back one, come up, then count 1, 2, go down here. So you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And by doing this, then you're doing a weave on these spokes. So it's all pretty straightforward. The reason I love doing this is it was a huge industry. It's one of these, as we always talk, it's one of these skills that is now going to be lost. And they said, for, you know, they fell out soon as the Industrial Revolution came in, because now they could do buttons in commercial amounts cheaper and quicker than people could make them. So I hate losing some of these hand arts, that so many of them were women dominated hand arts. And that makes me, so I like learning I'm not going to be able to learn everything, but I like learning. So now you can kind of see how you get this like little woven effect. And if you want to add more beads, like I'll probably add beads when I get out here. And sometimes I would leave that little ridge on the outside, and that way you can put beads out there too. There's all different ways. But this is the normal Dorset button, like this, which I'd almost gotten done. That went pretty good. Then I was going to do a Dorset button with a fan on it. I haven't done that yet. But then these are the shirt waist buttons. And boy, are they trickier. You want to use Uncle Bert's bee balm or whatever, or a nice soft beeswax that you coat the ring with so it kind of holds on. Because when you start these, until you put the stitches in place, these can just flick right off the edge of that ring. I had a hard time doing this, and it made my hand hurt. But here's one I was really trying hard. But what I think I'd rather do is take them apart and try again. Now that I've watched her do it, and I have these instructions. But here is one of the shirt waist beads. And this one is a star shirt lace, pardon me. I thought she was saying shirt waist, but I think it's shirt lace. And they were fashionable in the Edwardian era on shirt waist garments. And with this one, you did that cast on, then you pulled the different stitches in, you wound them, and then you pulled them in, and with the little stitches that I put on there, it locked everything in place. Isn't that cool? The back doesn't look as pretty as the front, but she said that's normal. But the front, you pull it all together. And it's hard to believe people would make these in 1/2 inch size. Unbelievable. But I will keep working on these. This one was going to be this last one, and there was just no way. I could not. I told her, I'm sorry, my hand's hurting too much. But here is what I worked on. And this is a Mancuso virtual schoolhouse class. And I have great news. They've got another one coming up in June. So I'm going to make sure to get my dibs in for just the class I want to take this June. I love it because you take the class from home in your pajamas, eating bonbons. But it is fun. And just so you know, this class was challenging for me. But there were some ladies in the class who were just zooming through stuff. I could not believe it. They were just so good at it. So next week, I'll have the rest of the cast on done with this one, and we'll do the weaving, okay? All right, the other thing, today is our day of, how'd you do that? And we've already done the Sparrow block. Now I'm going to show you a little bit about this English paper piecing, because I've got one more block. Whoa, sorry. I've got one more block to have this quilt made. And I made sashing strips on cardstock. And then I will take and slip stitch it around. So, as soon as I get one more block made, I can then start my new one. We've already got it picked out. This, I'll show you what it takes and what you need to do English paper piecing. I have to tell you, as someone who 40 years ago said, I will never sew by hand, I adore it. And when we had someone come in about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, to teach English paper piecing, I ignored it. I thought, not something I want to know. Now, shame on me. I'm going to bring you back down and show you a couple things about the English paper piecing, because I love it. All right. And I've already got my fabric picked out for my next one. Catherine Redford, exactly, Mary. Okay, so I love glue basting the fabric onto my blocks. And what I do is I take an evening. Oh, these are wonderful. They're sticky thimbles you can put on your finger to keep from having the needle go in the wrong way. And then the newest thing, I was given these by someone when they put together a bride basket for me at the retreat, and I love, love, love them. Now, you can use these. The reason, the new things that I'm going to show you I like even more is because these, when you put them on the blocks, they're kind of in the way and you have to move them. Well, watch what this does. All right. So here's the pattern I'm working on, block number 14. All right, so here's the pieces I have still left to do. And I think I'm missing, no, there's my two, okay, good. I was thinking I was missing a block. All right, so right here, I'm going to be putting in a triangle. And here is the triangle. I print my patterns out on cardstock and cut them out, and then I wrap them with fabric, use a glue stick, push the fabric down over, and then you're ready to go. Now, you know what I forgot to bring? I forgot to bring a needle and thread, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I've got a needle threaded with black thread over here, and I'm going to use that so you can probably see a little bit better exactly what I'm doing. It's nice to leave these on here threaded, but then they end up getting a little tangled. Okay, here we go. So I've got black thread, making sure. Here's how I knot my needles. I take and lay the thread on my finger, put the needle on top of it, wrap it a few times, then hold the wraps on there, push the needle up, pull it through, and it'll go right down to the bottom and give you a good knot. All right. Now, normally I would use gray thread. In fact, I thought I brought down my gray thread, but I don't see it in the bag. I must have dropped it out. But I love using a nice fine thread for this hand stitching. Whoops. The older I get, I don't know, my fingers aren't quite as... Thank you for someone who said I had nimble hands, but I sometimes feel like I feel very clumsy. All right, what I ended up getting in my bride's basket from a very kind person was these magnets. They are incredible. None of my rings are a worthy metal. But here they are. It's got a little sewing design on the back of the plastic. What I like to do is I lay this piece here like this, because once I sew it here, then I flip it up to this side and sew it along that side. So what I do is I'm going to do this first. So I'm going to put this here, and I put one side slightly above the other. Then I'm going to put the main magnet here, put the other little piece of metal there, and then I flip it over. Now, the reason I flip it over is because I'm going to stitch the triangle this way, then I'll flip it up and I'll continue stitching that way. I like to keep my thread, needle and thread going in one direction as much as I can. Thank you, Miss Mary. All right, so here I'm going to start. Now, no, I've got to make sure that this triangle is into this corner. It doesn't matter as much what's going on out here. It's how the pieces fit to each other. So see how I've got that white going right down to the orange? If I didn't have it close enough, I'd have a gap. So now, and I just make sure that I can see that white triangle just a wee bit from the front, and I'll tell you why. You want to try to just put your needle through the fabric. You don't want to sew through cardstock for two reasons. One, it's too hard on your fingers. But the other reason, let me bring this down even more. The other reason is because I want to reuse these cards. I'm going to have a box that I put with little slots that I put all of these paper piecing cards in. Because see how this is coming back up, and I put a little tiny hole in it so I can pull all the papers up once I've sewn them together. And that's a good thing about using a glue stick, is you want them to hold for a little while, but you don't want them to hold for too long. Now, this is the easiest stitch in the world. It is just a simple whip stitch. And I don't know why they call it a whip stitch, but you're just doing this all the way down the seams. And I don't even think about it anymore. It just kind of, I'm on autopilot, and I end up putting really tiny stitches in. But it's just what feels natural. Now, if I didn't have this white one showing up behind, it would be harder for me to go straight in across. But with this, it seems to work very easily. You're only trying to grab 2, maybe 3 threads at most. And I'll show you why as soon as I get to the end of this. But you just do a simple whip stitch all the way down. W-H-I-P, whip stitch. And this is so easy to sit in the evening with your feet up watching television, and you're getting stuff done. I am so much more productive. I don't know about y'all, but I can't stand sitting and not having anything to do. My hands just, otherwise I think I would just try to grab that potato chip bag. That's not good. So it's much better if I keep my hands busy and productive. And like I said, this, I already made block 15, so I had to come back to 14. So I have block 16 left to make. then I'm done and ready for my new, I think it's called Rose Arbor or something like that. But, okay. Keep going, keep going. I've got my head at a different angle because of the camera being right down here. But still, it's very, very simple. Now, when I get to this other end, both ends, I want to make sure it's nice and snug. So, I make sure I have it through all of this fabric. And then I'll just do a little whip stitch to the other side. So, it's already now started. It's connected to the orange. So, I'll take this off. Set that there. Then I'm going to bring the thread to the back side. Then I will take now and lift this here. And you can see why you wouldn't normally want to use black thread, because little bits do show. But it will show you how tiny my stitches are, which I think will make it very stable. But if you can see here, by using the gray thread that's very delicate, you can't even see the stitches along here. So then you just take and bring this to the side. You kind of have to, to get into some of these shapes, you kind of have to bend it and twist it around, and sometimes it'll make your cards try to pop out of the fabric. I try to keep them in place until I attach this block to another piece of fabric. So I can take the paper out once I have put the sashing on. But this has to be attached to something else before I can take this out. And that just makes sure that you keep it. And see, then you just ignore this one that's popping out like that. It's just acting up. And then just make sure it's really well sewn to the pieces around it right here. So I just went through them again, and then just start back up this side. You start back up and do a little bit of a loop in place here, then put your next piece in here and keep on going. And that's how easy it is. And this is my little bag that I take everything in. I dropped a block on the floor. Give me 1 second. Let me get this. I don't want to lose it. When you buy a paper piecing pattern, it comes usually with this will hold this together. But it comes usually with the printout pages of all the paper blocks that you need. And I keep them in separate bags. Like this is in block 12. Well, not quite, but almost. I don't like losing needles, so I put my needle and thread firmly in this block right there, so now it won't be lost. And that's how easy that is. Unfortunately, when you do it by hand, I would have had to open up all of these edges to try to sew this on by machine. So I'm just going to do what I do with the blocks, put them right sides together and whip stitch all the way down. So as long as you're not going through the cardstock, you're okay. Just try to use that fabric right at the edge. Alright, so today has been a day of demonstrations and techniques, because a lot of things we do, sometimes we don't even really think about it anymore because we've done it for so many years. Oh, here's my gray thread right here with my glue stick. So, and you can buy glue stick refills on Amazon even. Just check and see who has the best prices, because I'm very cheap. Yes, I am. I know. So I hope that just seeing some of those techniques again will kind of give you some inspiration. Sometimes when I get a little bored, I have to switch to something different. So I'm very comfortable with having 4 or 5 different projects going at once. And in fact, I found something new that I wanted to talk to y'all about. I'll show you next week. But it's going to be making small embellished works of art. It could be waves crashing in and little baby sea turtles and little shells. It could be a tree branch with a bird on it. It could be any of that. And it's going to be about embellishing, making something more three-dimensional. I think it might be fun to be our next project. And it's a good art quilt project. So I think I've now, and you won't believe this. Remember how I told you I felt so bad when I first got on here? Spending time with y'all, I feel better. I'm still going to go up and rest, but I feel better. I tell you, I honestly think that doing our hobbies, it gives us something to wake up for in the morning. It gives us something to look forward to in the day. When I have to scrub a bathroom, it's kind of nice to think about, which one of my hobbies do I want to do when I go and reward myself and sit and do something? So maybe that's still. I love English paper piecing. It is my thing, and I can take it to doctor's appointments. I can take it in the car on road trips. It's so portable, and I love it. So, and don't forget about thread heaven or beeswax to help condition your threads, because going through all that can be tough on thread. But otherwise, I think that's a good one for today. It is always my pleasure. I'm always humbled by the fact that you'll spend part of your day with me. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Click like if you would, but I love what I do. I'd love to keep doing it. And I thank you for joining me, because you teach me as much as I teach you every week. Take good care of yourselves. Do something special just for you. Just for you. I'm thinking of making an apple galette. My daughter made one. It was delicious, and I've got a couple old apples that need to be used up. So I think I'm going to do that this week. That's going to be something new and fun. And the Sparrow quilt will be done, so I can start doing the border. And I'm going to put stencil quilt on the quilt frame. So take good care of yourselves. I hope you find something wonderful that you'd like to do too. And as I said before, thank you for spending this time with me. I never take it lightly that you're willing to spend time with me. So thank you. And as it works out, you make me feel better. So now if I can find, I've been trying to find my little cursor so I can say goodbye, and I'm not sure where my cursor is. I just spotted it. There it is. All right. Thank you, and have a great week. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.